They say the gods are untouchable, that they reign supreme over all. But what if I told you one goddess dared to defy them all? A force of nature, both feared and revered. She did not bow, she roared. This is the untold story of Oya, the fierce goddess who defied the gods. A tale of power, betrayal, and a storm that could not be tamed. So, sit back, because this is African Myths Unveiled. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have a quick question for you. I know that many of you are tuning in from different parts of the world, all united by a love for African mythology. So, I'd love to reconnect. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I'll be in the comment section engaging with you. And if you're enjoying the content, a like and subscription would mean the world to me. All right, let's get back to the story. The land of Orun, the celestial realm of the gods, trembled under the weight of an approaching storm. Thick clouds rolled over the horizon, their bellies swollen with fury, flashing with fire from within. The Orisha gathered at the sacred grove, their divine forms glowing under the restless sky. A whisper moved through them, soft as the wind but sharp as a blade. Oya is coming. But before Oya became the uncontrollable tempest, she was a woman of fire and grace, a mortal touched by the divine. Born under the sign of the whirlwind, she was unlike any other child in the village of Ira. She did not fear the howling winds or the dark skies. She embraced them, danced in them. While other children ran for shelter, Oya ran toward the storm, arms outstretched, listening to its whispers as if it carried secrets only she could understand. Legends say that on the night she was born, the great river Niger overflowed its banks without warning. The winds twisted through the trees, bending even the mightiest of trunks, and a bolt of lightning split the sky in two. The elders took it as an omen. A child of great destiny had arrived. Her beauty was mesmerizing, but it was her spirit that captivated all. Even as a girl, she possessed a fire that could not be contained. She was strong-willed, fearless, and quick with her tongue. The men of Ira admired her, but they also feared her, for Oya was not meant to belong to anyone. She was meant to be free. One day, while wandering the forests beyond her village, she stumbled upon an old woman cloaked in shadows. The woman's eyes, white as the clouds before a storm, peered deep into Oya's soul. "You carry the storm within you, child," the woman murmured. Oya tilted her head. "And if I do, then you must learn to wield it before it wields you." The woman was no ordinary elder. She was a forgotten deity, banished from Orun long ago. She saw in Oya what no one else did, the makings of a goddess. Under her guidance, Oya learned to speak with the winds, to call upon the storms, to bend the rivers to her will. With every lesson, her power grew. But power comes at a cost. One fateful evening, a group of strangers arrived at Ira, warriors dressed in crimson and gold, their leader towering over the villagers with the weight of a god's presence. Shango. He was the Orisha of thunder and lightning, a king among gods, and he had come for Oya. "You belong in the realm of the gods," he declared, his voice rolling like distant thunder. "Come with me, and I will give you power beyond your wildest dreams." The villagers gasped. To refuse an Orisha was unthinkable. But Oya, defiant as ever, simply stared at him, her arms crossed. "And if I refuse?" she asked, a smirk playing at her lips. Shango chuckled. "You won't." She didn't know it then, but in that moment, her fate was sealed. The storm inside her had only just begun to rise, and soon, the gods themselves would feel its wrath. The night after Shango's arrival, the village of Ira lay silent beneath a restless sky. The wind whispered secrets through the trees, and Oya stood at the edge of the great river, staring into the blackened waters. She had always known she was different, but to be claimed by an Orisha, to leave behind the life she had fought to control. Shango had made his intentions clear. He wanted her by his side, not as a mortal, but as a goddess. It was a tempting offer. The gods wielded power beyond imagination, shaping the world with their very will. But Oya was not one to be owned, not by a man, not by a god. Still, something in her stirred. The old woman's words echoed in her mind. You must learn to wield the storm before it wields you. A choice stood before her. Accept her fate or seize it. The following morning, under the burning eye of the sun, Oya stood before Shango. The entire village watched in breathless anticipation, knowing their lives could change in an instant based on her answer. I will go, she said finally, her voice as steady as the earth beneath her feet. But I will not belong to you. A smirk played at the corners of Shango's lips, amusement flickering in his fiery eyes. Then we shall see, Oya. The storm does not resist the lightning, it dances with it. And so, Oya left the world of mortals. The realm of the Orisha was unlike anything she had imagined. Floating islands suspended in the heavens, rivers that glowed with the energy of the divine, a sky that was neither day nor night, but something in between. It was here that the gods ruled, shaping the fates of mortals with whispers and wars. But Oya was not there to watch. She was there to conquer. Under Shango's tutelage, she honed her abilities. She was not like the other Orisha, born into divinity. She had come from the mortal world, and that made her stronger, more unpredictable. She learned to summon the winds with a flick of her wrist, to call forth the hurricane with the force of her will. She danced with the storm, molded it, became one with it. Yet, in the stillness of the divine realm, a seed of doubt took root in her heart. Shango was powerful, yes. He was passionate, wild, intoxicating. But he was also dangerous, his hunger for control insatiable. At first, he welcomed Oya's strength, but soon she saw the truth. He had not brought her to Orun to make her his equal. He had brought her to make her his possession. He wanted her to stand beside him, but only as a reflection of his power. The first time she questioned him, he laughed. The second time, his gaze darkened. By the third, the storm between them had begun to rise. One night, as she sat by the celestial river, watching the waters twist and coil like living serpents, she felt a presence behind her. You are wasted at his side. She turned to see a figure standing in the shadows, his form half hidden beneath the glow of the floating lanterns. Ogun, the god of iron and war. Unlike the other Orisha, his power was not wrapped in gold and fire. It was forged in blood and steel. Shango fears what he cannot control, Ogun continued, stepping closer. And you, Oya, you cannot be controlled. His words slithered into her mind like a prophecy. The gods were powerful, yes, but they were not invincible. If she was to be caged, she would tear down the walls herself. That night, as the winds howled through the halls of the gods, Oya made a decision that would shake the heavens themselves. She would no longer be Shango's storm. She would be the storm. The celestial halls of Orun trembled under the weight of an approaching storm, one not summoned by Shango, nor by any of the elder Orisha. This was Oya's storm. It coiled through the heavens like a restless serpent, stirring the skies with its growing wrath. For too long, she had played the role Shango had assigned her. She had stood beside him, fought alongside him, and yet she remained a shadow in his light. But the truth had become clear. Shango did not share power. He consumed it, and she refused to be devoured. One evening, as the gods gathered for a great feast in the Hall of Eternity, Shango sat upon his golden throne, his presence dominating the room. Oya, draped in robes of crimson and midnight, stood at his side. Her eyes, dark as the approaching storm, flickered with something dangerous: resolve. She had made her choice. Ogun had been right. Shango feared what he could not control, and it was time he learned that even the mightiest of gods could fall. As the Orisha feasted, drinking from golden goblets and boasting of their conquests, Oya rose to her feet. The room stilled. She was no longer the woman who had once stood in Shango's shadow. "You speak of conquest," she said, her voice cutting through the air like the crack of a whip. "But true power does not come from domination. It comes from the storm that refuses to be caged." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Shango turned to her, his brow furrowing. "Careful, Oya." But she was past the point of caution. She stepped forward, her hands trembling with barely contained energy. The winds answered her call, rushing into the grand hall, snuffing out the golden flames that lined its walls. Shadows twisted across the faces of the gods. "You claim to be the god of storms," she continued, eyes locked onto Shango. "Then let us see whose storm rages stronger." A moment of silence. Then, thunder. Shango rose from his throne, his expression unreadable, but the air around him crackled with fury. The gods watched in stunned anticipation. Never before had anyone dared challenge the King of Lightning himself. "Do you think you can stand against me, Oya?" His voice was a deep rumble, the prelude to a coming storm. Oya did not blink. "I do not think. I know." The heavens bore witness as the battle began. Shango's lightning split the sky, but Oya's winds swallowed it whole. His fire raged, but her tempest drowned it in an endless fury of rain and thunder. The gods watched in awe, for never had an Orisha challenged Shango with such ferocity, and never had he struggled to win. For every bolt he hurled, she countered with a gust so strong it twisted the very fabric of the sky. Every time he tried to overpower her, she slipped through his grasp, like the storm itself, unpredictable, untamed. Finally, with one final strike, she unleashed a wind so powerful, it sent Shango crashing into the celestial mountains. Silence fell. The other gods stared, their disbelief as heavy as the storm clouds above. Shango, the mighty god of thunder, had been bested. Oya did not wait for their judgment. She turned her back on the great hall, her robes billowing like a living tempest, and walked away. She had no need for a throne. She had become something greater. She had become the storm itself. The celestial winds howled as Oya stepped away from the shattered remains of Shango's pride. The gods stood frozen, their faces etched with disbelief. No Orisha had ever dared to defy the god of thunder and lived to tell the tale. But Oya was no ordinary Orisha. As she descended from the heavens, the skies followed her command. The winds bowed before her, the rivers whispered her name, and the earth trembled beneath her presence. She was no longer just the consort of a god. She was a force of nature, the untamed storm, the wielder of winds, the gatekeeper of the afterlife. But power, she soon learned, comes with a price. Shango's defeat did not go unnoticed. The gods of Orun, bound by order and hierarchy, saw her rebellion as a dangerous shift in the balance of power. Even those who admired her strength whispered in hushed tones, Oya had done the impossible, and the gods feared what she might do next. It was Olodumare, the supreme creator, who summoned her. She stood before the divine presence, unbowed, her storm-filled eyes meeting the infinite wisdom of the All-Father. "You have disrupted the order of things, Oya," Olodumare said, his voice as vast as the cosmos. "I have claimed my destiny," she replied. The Supreme One studied her for a long moment. "And yet, the other gods conspire against you. They fear the storm you have become." Oya knew the truth. Shango would not suffer his defeat in silence. He would rally the Orisha against her, branding her a traitor, a threat. The gods do not forgive those who challenge their rule. "Let them try," she said, her voice steady. "A storm does not beg for permission to rage." Olodumare gave a slow nod, his gaze unreadable. "Then you must be ready." True to her fears, Shango's vengeance came swift and merciless. Lightning split the sky as the Orisha of thunder led his followers into battle against Oya. The heavens became a battlefield, the clash of wind and fire shaking the very foundations of Orun. But Oya was no longer a woman, caught in the games of gods. She was a goddess in her own right, and the storm bent to her will. She fought not just with fury, but with cunning. She used the winds to twist Shango's own lightning against him. She turned his rage into reckless strikes. She shattered his army with tempests that roared like 1,000 beasts. The battle raged for days, neither willing to yield. But Oya was not fighting for dominance. She was fighting for freedom. And in the end, the storm cannot be chained. The other Orisha, watching the war unfold, saw the truth. Oya was not merely a rival to Shango. She was his equal. More than that, she was beyond him. She did not need to rule. She did not seek control. She was power itself, the force that cleared the path for new beginnings, the wind that carried souls to the afterlife, the storm that both destroys and renews. Even Shango, battered and broken, saw it. And though his pride burned, he knew he could no longer stand in her way. With a final strike, Oya sent a whirlwind through the heavens, separating herself from the battle. She did not claim a throne. She did not need one. She had carved her own path. The gods, humbled and in awe, accepted the truth. Oya was not just a goddess. She was the storm incarnate. In time, mortals came to know her not as Shango's consort, but as a goddess in her own right. She became the ruler of winds and tempests, the guardian of the spirits, the one who stood at the crossroads of life and death. To this day, when the winds rise and the storms howl, the people whisper her name. For Oya was never meant to be owned. She was meant to rage, to roar, to reign. The untold story of Oya is not one of submission, but of defiance. A tale of power, betrayal, and the storm that refused to be tamed.